Welcome back to test number 2 for FM23 Total Tactics. This week we are returning to an old stomping grounds of mine, which is Strikerless Tactics. Back on FM21, when I was just streaming and playing in streamer draft competitions, I was able to climb to the rank of number 4 in the FM draft rankings, along with a good friend of mine, Coinbird, who helped create Total Tactics, who was ranked number 1 at the time, and I believe still might have the highest ever rating in the FM draft rankings. Both of us were playing a strikerless tactic of my design that was just dominating PvP at the time and, creating quite the controversy at the time. It always seems like people just love or hate strikerless, and I've always been on the side of the people who just love playing without strikers. So I've decided to go back to the well here for FM23. Now, one of the reasons why I took a year off is it just didn't work very well in FM22. Here or there, you could get some good performances from it, and it's not like it was impossible to make work, but it was difficult and probably not worth the effort, especially given how good 2 strikers and 3 strikers really were in FM22. However, on FM23, because of the existence of low block and mid block, and those being things and systems that they want people to try and want to be effective, it has opened the door again for the kind of runs and play passages that made Strikerless so popular back in its heyday. So we're going to bring it back. Today, we have a very special Strikerless build for you, and I hope you enjoy it. As always, make sure you like and subscribe, and also leave a comment on the video on your thoughts on Strikerless. Go ahead, start a debate. Let's have at it in the comments. And finally, please consider joining the Patreon channel. The Patreon itself has a link in the description. You'll have early access to the tester once it's released with the full version of the game, and you'll also have access to a host of other benefits like discussions with me about your tactic, special downloads of tactics that haven't had videos made, set piece routines, training schedules, etc. So go ahead, consider getting involved in the Patreon, and a special thanks to our first patron, Mate Benchik, again for joining the channel as well as a patron. So let's take a look at this odd strikerless tactic. All right, so this is the tactic. Now, it looks a little bit weird, maybe a little bit like an anchor that you might call it, or, the 33130, which is what it's called in the description, but this tactic is really good, and there's a few things that I sort of want to point out about the tactic. And the first is very attacking mentality. It's really important with this kind of tactic to really push your advantage in numbers to prevent the opponent from overlapping. And the inverted wingbacks on attack and the mentality on very attacking is really important. Now, obviously, there are ways you can switch this tactic late on in the game to either balanced or positive to get your 3 points in the bag, but when we look at the results, you'll see that wasn't really a problem for Atalanta being forced to play on very attacking for the entirety of the game. It kind of goes with the territory. Now, also, these shadow strikers do have mark tighter, shoot less often, and tackle harder on. So they are trying to win that ball back and be a part of the press. The central shadow striker doesn't have mark tighter, but is trying to make themselves available for a ball should the team win the ball back. And again, on the right, the same instructions. So you've got the CM attack, just a basic CM attack. I don't even have move into channels turned on. We're just going basic with the CM attack, giving them the freedom that they need to make the best decision possible. These inverted wingbacks on attack, however, are also just stock inverted wingbacks. There's nothing really special here about them. The same with the anchor, the same with the ball playing defenders, though. We are trying to get the most out of them possible. So one of the things, if you've kind of been active on Football Manager Twitter, and maybe you've seen the Twitter thread started by Delgit Bust the Net, one of the other creators here of the Total Tactics Discord server, dribble more is really good this year on ball playing defenders. They will advance it in the channel with an anchor man next to them and a stopper behind them. You can feel a little bit more confident in this tactic, asking these ball playing defenders to really stay wide, dribble more, and get into the channels and help push the play. It's been really effective, and hopefully we'll see some of that in action here in the highlights. So we'll take a look more at those in a little bit, but also we'll take a quick look at the team instructions. We are focusing down the left and the right because we want to make sure a lot of the offense runs through these IWBs and gets the ball up to these wide shadow strikers to get balls into the middle as well. So that's one of the goals here. High tempo, run at the defense. One of the reasons in these kind of strikerless tactics that you run at the defense is because when you have a player carrying the ball towards a defender, that defender needs to engage them. They can't just wait and hang back. So the longer you run at them, the more their defender gets pulled out of shape to attack those shadow strikers. That is what creates space in behind, and then from there you get the goals. So it's a big part of how the tactic works. We're rolling it out to keep possession. We're counter-pressing and countering. We're on the high press, and that's important because you do need to push these guys as far forward as possible. If you play a mid-block or a low-block with a strikerless tactic, they will be all over you. Standard defensive line. We have the press as slightly more often because I'm managing the press with the individual instructions on these shadow strikers. So that is the reason for that. So I haven't quite learned yet or figured out what the best tackling defensive line, pressing, trap, and cross engagement instructions are. So we've stayed vanilla for now. Once the full game comes out, that's something I'll be diving a lot more into. But let's take a look at the tactic in action with some highlights. All right, on this highlight, it's going to highlight the power of the ball-playing defender, which is something that really wanted to talk about after going through the tactic, and in this very first highlight, you'll see exactly what they're capable of. Now, you will watch them also play wider through the IWB as well, focus down that left and right, which is one of the instructions that we've given to create the passing angle necessary to spring one of the shadow strikers for the goal. So let's go ahead and watch the highlight. Okoli here playing as a ball-playing defender. He takes this, look at the space. He just starts dribbling all the way across the halfway line, about 45 yards out of goal. He lays it off to Hadeboer, and then Hadeboer has that nice little diagonal angle to slide the ball into Malinovsky, and it's a goal. But the amount of yardage that was taken up by that ball-playing defender to push that play forward really compressed the field and let the IWB and the shadow striker work together to get a quick, small opening for the passing angle to get in there to that shadow striker, and then obviously a great finish by Malinovsky at the near post as well. But an important goal because it's one that really illustrates the power of the ball-playing defender as a ball carrier in FM23. On this next highlight, we can really start to see the power of these IWBs on attack because they're pushing higher up the pitch and they're being a little bit more aggressive. They are very effective at winning those balls back in forward wide areas before your opponent has had the chance to overlap. So despite playing as an IWB, you would think they would be tucked really inside, but what helps that is having three center backs pushes the starting position of that IWB a little bit wider. And when you focus play down the left and right flanks, they also tend to stay just a little bit wider despite having some inside movement tendencies. So, but let's watch what happens here as the left back Brandon Soppy puts a lot of pressure on and then is able to find a great ball right away. And this is also an illustration of the hit early crosses and the low crosses and what can happen here with the strikerless tactics. So Di Lorenzo has the ball. Soppy is aggressive in its pursuit, takes advantage of a poor first touch, hits the early cross low, and it finds its way through to Mario Pasalic, who's making the run. And it's a goal for Atalanta here. So I think a great finish. Despite the congested middle, Pasalic is still able to find a pocket of space, and Brandon Soppy slips that ball up through that central channel with the early low cross and is able to get the goal. All right, for this final highlight, we'll see yet another example of how playing down the flank and with the attacking IWB can really help generate the overloads necessary to gain an advantage in the final third against your opponent. So this play develops kind of quickly. The goalkeeper has distributed the ball here to Scalvini, and that's where we're going to start the highlight. He'll take a little bit of space, but they do a good job with Buonanito here closing down Scalvini and forcing him into the pass, but you'll see what happens really quickly. Hans Hatteboer here, the right back, is going to get really far forward and see the power of his like attacking, but on the flank, despite being IWB, what he's capable of. So here goes Scalvini under a little bit of pressure, hoofs it forward, but look how far forward Hatteboer is. Hatteboer was further forward than all of the Shadow Strikers. The Shadow Striker's existence made sure that Hatteboer was pushed a little bit wide. Now, he is a little bit of a tall right back, so it just kind of illustrates some of the power in that, which let him head that ball down. But if your fullback is out jumping an opponent's fullback anyway, they don't have to be super tall to win headers in that position, but it did help that Hatteboer does have that in the bag, but he's able to knock that ball down into the path of Malinovsky, who finishes the goal off. So again, strong run down the flanks, high up the pitch by that IWB, forced wide by the Shadow Striker. The ball from a ball-playing defender is pushed up into that channel in the wide area. Immediate ball headed down by Hatteboer into the path of Malinovsky, and he finishes. It's just beautiful and kind of shows some of the power of this strikerless tactic to get in behind despite not having strikers against these opponents. All right, we're going to start on this screen instead of the expanded league table because I want to point out something to you right there in the middle of the screen. Ruslan Malinovsky, as a Shadow Striker, scored 30 goals in Serie A and had 22 assists. Just an absurd season by Malinovsky, showing the power of what the front three can really do in this tactic. Now, those assists are powered a little bit by the fact that Malinovsky plays set pieces, but in addition, though, he is getting a lot of assists, setting up his teammates as that Shadow Striker, playing balls through to the CM attack or to the other two Shadow Strikers. So there is a lot of power in this position assist-wise, but when you add on top of that set pieces as well, 30 goals, 22 assists is just ridiculous. So I wanted to make sure we saw that, but let's take a look a little bit about more of the detailed stats here. So 89 points in Serie A when you are testing a tactic with zero in-game management is pretty impressive. 92 goals scored and less than a goal a game conceded. 34 goals against in Serie A for this tactic is also very impressive. It only lost 3 times all season, and those losses came to Juve, Fiorentina, and Cremonense, which is, you know, a little bit loose of a loss there, but it is just destroying teams. So this is a huge goal difference and a 5-point win at the end of the year over Napoli, which is a very strong finish. So I'm really happy with the results here for the table. Obviously, 89 points is really good. Winning the league with a strikerless tactic, something that just wasn't possible in sim tests on FM22. Finally, let's take a look at some of the more stats-based results here for the tactic. And again, we're seeing what we thought we'd see. Malinovsky with just a ridiculous goal return, but also we're seeing goals from Coop Miners chipping in. We're seeing goals from Scalvini. We're seeing goals from De Rune. We're seeing 11 goals, 10 assists from Pasalic, one of the other AMCs. And we're seeing 14 goals from Luis Muriel, who was hurt for some part of the season, ended up playing on the bench because Ederson was also preferred sometimes at AMC with 9 goals, 6 assists. But you're seeing a lot of goals kind of from all over the park. Hatteboer actually did miss a large chunk of the season. Zappacosta forced to play as well, but just a really strong tactic and a ton of good statistical performances. Obviously, the Shadow Striker Malinovsky having the biggest impact on the outcomes. But remember, we're playing this like without using Zapata at all, right? Zapata is not going to be used by the match engine as just a striker. So one of the best players that Atalanta has isn't even suiting up for these games. So I hope that you are able to enjoy this tactic as much as I have enjoyed building it. I think it is very strong, something that can work in a variety of saves. Something I will encourage you to do is make sure you have Shadow Strikers that are high in acceleration, anticipation, teamwork, and vision. Those 4 attributes seem to correspond the most with success. Add a little composure in there too, and I think you're looking really strong. You want your shadow strikers to make those interior runs off the shoulders of the defenders, know when to make them quickly. You want high teamwork, so they're releasing the ball quickly for a teammate who is making that run. All of those attributes kind of fold into making your shadow strikers really tick, and something that if you're able to do with that high acceleration as well, you should have a lot of joy, and just tons of goals in the league. Atalanta almost cracked 100, and that is without me optimizing the personnel for this kind of tactic. If I had a transfer window to try and improve the kind of players playing Shadow Striker for Atalanta, the numbers would have been even higher. But that said, join the Discord. The link is in the description. Make sure you subscribe for all my future YouTube content. Hit the like button on the video for a little bit more visibility for the channel. I would always appreciate that. And I will see you next time on Total Tactics.